It's time to pick a side. The border war is on the air with BG and TanMan. All right, true believers, welcome into the border war for April the 4th, 2018. This is BG. I'm here with TanMan. TanMan, say hi.
Hi.
You can tweet us at the Border War. You can tweet me at BG_Border War, and TanMan is at TanMan3264. Our email is CarolinaBorderWar@gmail.com. If you are listening to this live, you can email us or tweet us live, and we will respond to anything you say as long as it's not too critical or inappropriate. We are sensitive guys, and we don't like people telling us that we don't do a good job. We also don't like liars, which is what that would be. We obviously do an excellent job.
Fantastic.
Even if you're not catching this live and you're seeing this later on Facebook or Twitter, you can still listen to it. Obviously, you figured that out since you're listening to it, and that's on the Spreaker app. We may or may not go back to uploading this to Meredith's at some point, but for right now, Spreaker is still the best way to go. We can also be found on YouTube and SoundCloud. At least that's the rumor.
That's what they say.
I don't know that anybody's listening on SoundCloud, but Spreaker is better anyway. And like and share us on Facebook and retweet us on Twitter. Okay, TanMan, college basketball season wrapped up this week. We've got some discussion this week about that. Also getting into some mock drafts in the NFL, particularly the Cowboys and the Redskins. Talk a little college football, and then we will end hour two with our abysmal pick process, which
at this point I'm just hoping to finish above 500.
You have to. That's the really awful thing.
Increasingly difficult.
You're basically losing a coin flip. Is what's happening here, but
especially this time of year.
Oh, it is. It's a tough game. There's no doubt. Trying to pick these NBA games, which is all we've got left. And in case you're wondering, we have talked about picking maybe Major League Baseball series, but baseball's so all the time, and we're so weekly that it feels kind of weird. So probably we're going to end it with basketball before we get back to it next fall with football again. But before we can do any of that, TanMan, catch us up in this week in sport.
A great NCAA tournament has come to an end, and in a rather dud-like fashion.
Great tournament, terrible title.
Villanova wins its third national title, its second in 3 years, 79-62 over Michigan. Sophomore Dante DiVincenzo was named the most outstanding player.
2 years ago. I don't remember.
We will get to more of the national championship game in a few moments.
Why don't you just say you don't know?
We lost, man. We lost. They beat us in an amazing game, an amazing shot.
After an amazing shot.
After an amazing shot.
Two amazing shots.
On the women's side, talk about amazing shots. Notre Dame, they knock off undefeated UConn in the semifinals, and Mississippi State in the title game by 3 to win their second national title. Say if you can pronounce this name, big guy. Orike Ogunbowale. That's wrong. She hits the game winner
just like you said.
In both contests. The Irish have lost 4 times in national championship games since 2011. So it's good to see Muffet McGraw and the Irish finally break through and get the win.
And speaking of hard luck teams, now Mississippi State starts to look like that. 2 years in a row, they make it to the finals.
Yeah, that's
neither time. Well, they beat UConn last time. As a South Carolina fan, this was all kind of hard to take. I just hated that we had to be the one that couldn't beat UConn. But I wish somebody else had done it in another bracket, and we could have dodged them again.
Well, speaking of the Gamecocks taking L's, the Tar Heels, they sweep Wake Forest last weekend. The Gamecocks, they sweep Tennessee. Sets up a monster heavyweight showdown in Charlotte last night. The Gamecocks fall 11-3 to North Carolina. The Gamecocks played a run in each of the first 3 innings to take a 3-1 lead, but North Carolina scores 4 in the 8th, 4 in the 9th to get the win. It's the third in a row for North Carolina by a combined score of 46-8. The Tar Heels will be in Miami this weekend. The Gamecocks head to Lexington to take on a very tough Kentucky Wildcat team this weekend. The Tigers, they sweep Boston College, and they get the win over Coastal Carolina. They are on the road against Notre Dame this weekend. In NBA action, playing out the string, the Hornets go 0-4. They've got 3 games left on the year. They're at Orlando on Friday, and they close with back-to-back games against the Pacers at home Sunday and on the road Tuesday.
We're all on the edge of our seats for those 3.
Yeah, I'm thinking about riding up Sunday. You want to go?
Just to say you did it.
Yeah, you want to
go? We'll talk about it after the show.
The Braves. The Major League Baseball is underway. The Atlanta Braves. Break them up, BG. They take 2 of 3 against the Phillies to open it up. They take 2 of 3 against the Nationals. Finish that one up this afternoon. Next up, they begin a 9-game road trip Friday night in Denver against the Rockies. Here's one for you, RG3, back in the NFL. He is signed on with the Baltimore Ravens. And finally, for now, let the quarterback controversy in Baltimore begin. Finally, Ian Poulter wins the Houston Open at 19 under after facing off with former U.S. Open fan favorite Bo Hostler in one extra hole. Next stop, Augusta National for the Masters. You looking at me like you don't know who Bo Hostler is?
I'm not looking at you like anything. I'm looking at you like I always look at you. That's what my face looks like. I wish you'd stop making fun of it.
I just assumed you were a Bo Hostler fan. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. And next stop, Augusta National, the Masters.
Speaking of Georgia, back to one of your news items. I've been sort of impressed with the Braves so far. They lost an ugly one Monday night, but they exploded on the Nationals last night. Their offense has been clicking, and you want to win baseball games while that's happening.
Well, I think I heard this afternoon that through 6 games, this is the most runs they've scored in franchise history.
There's been a lot of things I've heard over the past few days where they've tied or broken records from 2004, which is, I think, one of the last years they won that division. And I'm not certainly saying you have to be careful with that in baseball. We all know that. We've all done that in April. Oh, I tweeted you the other day. I was like, the Braves are going to be 162-0. They're on pace to go undefeated. But, they haven't been above 500 in 2 years. Just being above 500 at all.
They sit at 4-2 right now.
I'll take it. I'll take it. It's a nice early start for the Braves. All right, so
there's your weekend sport.
Touching up back on college basketball, obviously we said just a few minutes ago, we had Loyola. Obviously, we both predicted this. They sort of, I don't know that they ran out of gas. I mean, they don't have the kind of depth that a lot of teams have to have one or two guys have a little bit of an off night. Michigan played well enough.
Yeah.
What else can you say?
This one, they were up. You could tell watching the game early on, it kind of seemed like the Final Four and being on the big stage had gotten to them a little bit. And once they shook off the rust, Michigan was doing the same thing that they usually do and that they've done through the whole tournament. They kind of went through a lull offensively. Loyola comes back. They lead 29-22 at halftime. They get up by as much as 10 in the second half, BG, before Mo Wagner just goes historic. Ends up with 24 and 15, I believe. And really there was up until about the 10-minute mark, I'd say Loyola had a really good chance to win the ball game. But when they go 6 straight trips and turn the ball over 6 straight times, and Michigan, with that defense they can play, they clamped down on them, and there was really just nowhere to go.
And I think you can overanalyze a game like this, and I don't think it's a case of Loyola running out of gas. Look, when 2 basketball teams go out there, one team's going to lose. Well, they did. It was just they missed some shots in the last 10 minutes, like you said. They turned the ball over. Sometimes that stuff happens. I just think the problem with Loyola is that they don't have any room for error in a game like that.
No, they didn't have any room for error, and so when you go back and look, the South Region's most outstanding player, Ben Richardson, he had a big weekend last weekend in Atlanta. Saturday night, he gives you 4 points. He plays 35 minutes. He scores 4 points. He just was never really a factor in the ball game. One bright spot for the Ramblers, the freshman big man, he more than held his own, and really is what kept him in the ball game. Holding his own against Wagner throughout that contest. But like I said, to me, they just kind of, you said, I do think they kind of ran out of gas. By the end of the thing, they just looked tired. They were done. Well, we said it last week. Teams like this, they get on these runs. It's not, it's nothing new to get on a run and get to a Final Four, but this is usually where those runs end.
Right.
And
I remember,
unfortunately for them, it came crashing down.
Do you feel like the Kansas-Villanova game was actually the national championship game? And sort of the way the bracket's set up here. I didn't really feel like either one of those teams had a chance to beat Kansas or Villanova. To me,
no. Loyola would have had no opportunity. I mean, they would have had no chance to win either one of them.
It felt a little bit like if you've been to a basketball tournament, or we do it in the College World Series where you have a loser's bracket, where you have a double elimination. It felt like that kind of game to me, even before it started. Just the way it's set up. I think it would have been much more interesting to see Loyola go up against Villanova and Kansas match up with Michigan, and that would have been a more true, like, obviously I think Villanova wins that game, but the drama would have been there before the game. The hype would have been there. Oh, it's David and Goliath. Yeah. Whereas it was like Goliath 1 and Goliath 1A, and then these other two teams that nobody thought really had any business in the Final Four. But now, I mean, Michigan was a 3 seed.
They were a 3 seed, but you look at their path. They played the 14, of course, and then you draw a 6.
And like you said, 7, really only looking 9, impressive in one game.
11, they really only looked good, really good in one game. But
this tournament deserved a better final game, though. I think we can all agree on that, but we didn't get it.
No, we didn't. If you thought that Villanova was going to continue what they did Saturday night into Monday night, I think that was expecting entirely too much. 7 minutes into a ball game against Kansas, Villanova is up 22-4.
Yeah.
It was over.
Yeah.
7 minutes into the game, it was over. They had 6 players hit multiple threes. They hit 18 threes that night. They hit 18 threes.
I think what you do if you're a college basketball fan, and I mean, you can tell me what you think about this. I think in a game like that, if you're a fan, you just sit back and sort of appreciate what Villanova's managed to pull off in the past 4 or 5 years. I mean, what Jay Wright's got going on up there is it's not common. Yeah. It's not unprecedented, obviously. There have been teams that have done things like this before. But, I mean, if you want to talk about Alabama in college football or New England in the NFL, I mean, my thing about dynasties, if you want to call it this, is that as a fan, I just sort of sit back and appreciate what they've been managed to pull off, as long as it's not some team I don't hate. And you even admitted this to me 2 years ago when you guys lost to them. Jay Wright and Villanova is a hard bunch of guys to hate.
Right.
They're pretty classy guys.
Pretty
classy guys.
Yeah. What they did this past weekend, I mean, you can't really do anything but tip your hat to those guys. And I saw a lot of North Carolina fans through social media really just jumping on the hate, man. They were not going to pull for Villanova. I don't care. They could have been playing the Iranian national team. They were going to be waving the Iranian flags. And I told the guys that we lost an amazing championship game on a unbelievable shot. Maybe the best finish to a national championship game in the history of college basketball.
To me, you reserve that kind of stuff for teams that talk smack before or after the game, inappropriate smack, or teams that are your rival. I mean, Duke could be as classy as they want to be. You guys are still going to hate them. I mean, Clemson is pretty classy, and I still hate them. But you know, Villanova, what did you expect them to do? They're going to try to beat you. You're playing a game. Their shot went in. It counted. You lost.
I was going to say, so I didn't really get that. But to the national title game, they kind of started off slow. You know, Jalen Brunson, he's won every Player of the Year award. I think he was held to single digits. Found themselves down by as many as 7 in the first half. But then Michigan did the Michigan thing again. They went scoreless for over 5 minutes and let Villanova creep back in, take the lead. And then when they put a couple balls in the basket, then they went scoreless for the last 3.5 minutes of the first half. In the second half, it was never a ball game. I think a Pascal 3 with about 18 or 19 minutes left to go in the game goes in. It puts them up by 12, and it never gets closer. It balloons up to 20 at one point. DiVincenzo, the MOP, 31, I think it was. So they really just ran Michigan out of the gym, for lack of a better term. Here's one 7 times. The Big Ten now has lost 7 national championship games in a row. And that streak began with Indiana.
Okay.
The Hoosiers.
I was going to go back to the
Indiana too. But
did anybody in the Michigan game call a suspicious timeout that they didn't have with 3 seconds left on the clock? Anything like that in this game?
I
didn't catch the end of it. Didn't.
Well, I was going to say I'm sure you're not alone in not catching the end of it. I'm sure a lot of people. A lot of people.
I always feel bad for
out.
announcers in games like that. I mean, I know they're being paid six figures, so we probably
don't feel bad.
Don't feel too bad for them. Well, speaking of Villanova, sort of running everybody out of the gym. I mean, they did that all tournament long.
Yep.
I think it's safe to say at least the teams they matched up against, no one matched up against them at all. It would have been good. I mean, you certainly could make the case that Kansas should have matched up with them.
But 18 threes will do that to you. 18 threes would have beaten the 76ers Saturday night.
It would have. Being a college basketball fan who can cite ridiculous facts and figures from every tournament you've ever watched,
Stop.
Stop it. I'm doing a good job to remember, like, next season who won the national title last year. I do remember who won it 2 years ago for some reason. But would you say that this is the most dominant tournament run you've ever seen? Or not?
Yes. And that's hard to say because if you go back and watch North Carolina in 2009, that was a dominant run.
Yes.
North Carolina with Hansbrough and Wayne Ellington, that bunch, that was a bad bunch of dudes. But when you start really breaking down and getting into the nitty-gritty of Villanova's run, they're the first team to lead the nation in scoring and win the national championship since North Carolina did in 2005. They hit more threes in the NCAA tournament. They broke Illinois' record when Illinois went to the championship game in 2005 and lost. And here's the other one. And looking at that, they're the first team since North Carolina in 2009 to win every game by at least 12 points.
That's a mark of distinction.
That's when you couple it with the other two facts that I just dropped on you. I would say if it's not the most dominant run, it's going to be right up there, and you're going to have to show me one better than that because it was impressive.
Was there a team in this tournament somewhere in another bracket, somewhere that you think had a legitimate shot at knocking Nova off if they had drawn a different seed, if they had ended up in a different bracket? Is there a team anywhere that could have slowed those three-pointers down? Kind of putting you on the spot.
Man,
I picked them to win the title from the beginning. I didn't see them as a team that had a lot of weaknesses to exploit.
I think Duke would have. I think Kansas was more than capable of giving them a run for them. But again, if they're going to make 18 threes,
well, that's what I was going to say.
There's nothing you can do.
Duke would be annihilated by a team that made 18 threes because they're going to help you make them.
Right. If they're going to make 18, but you saw Villanova in the Elite Eight game with Texas Tech. They went 4 for 24. So I mean, they have bad shooting nights built in there. I don't know that you would have seen another one because they had already had one. But I think on a rough shooting night, I think Duke could have given them a run for their money. I think Kansas should have. As far as the other half of the bracket goes, Arizona. Maybe if they were playing well, if the Arizona that showed up in Vegas for the Pac-12 tournament is the same one that showed up in the NCAA tournament, I think Arizona certainly, they were my national title pick for crying out loud. But other than that, on that half of the bracket, I don't think that Xavier would have, being familiar and in the same conference. I think that Villanova would have beaten them. I don't think Kentucky would have. So, no, to answer your question, I think the number of teams that realistically would have given Villanova a run for their money is very, very short. I think they were head and shoulders the best team in this tournament. It's not even close.
Now, I don't mean so when I ask this question, listen carefully to what I mean because sometimes you don't listen to me at all.
That's just not true, man.
It's true.
It's not true.
You're staring out the window at a bird right now as I'm talking. You're not even making eye contact.
Wait, what?
I saw a thing on Facebook. This is pretty funny. It was a meme, or as I like to pronounce them, Meme.
Meme. Hall of Fame Meme.
It said, my wife walks up to me and says, says, "You never listen to me." I'm going to mess it up. I can't even remember how it goes. Something about, that's a funny way to start a conversation, isn't it? Or something. The implication was she had said things before that. Yeah, I couldn't remember what to do there. All right, so listen carefully to the question. Not are they the best team, not this team specifically, but is Villanova right now going into next season? Right now, are they the best program in the country?
Again, it may just be being a prisoner of the moment, but I have to say yes. I would have to say yes. When they went to the Final Four in 2009 and they lost to North Carolina, I just want to get that in there since you like to make sure
I
to get that.
I wasn't going to bring that up.
Well, no, I know you were, but you were so quick to bring up 2016. I wanted to make sure you knew that we did beat Villanova on occasion.
I wouldn't have brought that up.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you wouldn't. They went to that Final Four, and Jay Wright, came out and said afterwards, 3 years after they were in that Final Four, they were 13-19. And Jay Wright came out and said, "Look, we got away from recruiting Villanova guys. We got away from our base and recruiting our kind of kids." So listen to these recruiting classes: 27th, 36, 48, 29, 45, and 28. Okay, those were the recruiting classes since Jay Wright hit the reset on the ranks. Since Jay Wright hit the reset on their program, the guys they bring in: Uchefu, Archidiakono, Josh Hart, Chris Jenkins. Those guys formed the base for the national title 2 years ago. Phil Booth, Mikael Bridges, Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, who was ranked 124th in his class, by the way, your MOP. Those guys laid the foundation for another national title. So Jay Wright has gone in and he's gotten his guys. They fit his program.
And he's kept them.
And he keeps them. And so that's probably the most well-run program in the country right now, in my opinion. It's hard to argue otherwise. 2 national titles in 3 years. They are 165-21, and they have not lost back-to-back games over the last 5 years.
And
that's unbelievable.
I spent a lot of time thinking about stuff like this. I love talking about the differences in the 3 major sports and like how they're actually played. And I've mentioned this before, but I think the reason that upperclassmen matter, the reason that on popular console video games you have a chemistry score in basketball. You don't see that in baseball. You don't see that in the NFL on those games, and I think there's a reason for that. Now, just imagine if we see this in the NBA all the time. When you have these guys in free agency, let's take the Thunder at the beginning of this season. Things weren't clicking for about a month. When Bosch and LeBron went to the Heat 7-8 years ago, when they first showed up, things weren't clicking. They didn't
start
look
like
good.
8-9 or something like that year.
But in Major League Baseball, you remember the Yankees in the 90s, they used to pick up Luis Polonia every year when the playoffs started and just plug him in, and he would help them win a World Series. He didn't even know the guys on the team's name. It didn't matter.
Right.
So what I'm saying, and in football to a lesser degree, but if you're a lineman, I mean, you can. There is a plug-and-play mentality in those 2 sports, especially in baseball. I don't think that exists in basketball. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the argument you and I are constantly making is that this idea of the one-and-done kind of teams like Kentucky and Duke, the reason it may not be working is because yes, you can be really good, but in a conference setting, I mean in a tournament setting where you're playing repeatedly and you're getting tired, you don't have those instincts to fall back on to rely on each other, and you don't have some guy in the locker room who's earned the right to be your leader. And you made this point several years ago. Even the best Kentucky teams that have the one that won the national title under Calipari, the big names, of course, were one and dones, but they had senior players.
Yeah,
they don't have those anymore. They're gone. And you're just making the same case with Villanova. I mean, on paper, this team has no business being in the Final Four, let alone winning a national title. But here they've done it twice in a row, and I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say they probably did it with very, very upperclassmen-laden rosters.
Like I said, when they started that run with the class that brought in Ochefu and Arcidiacono, by the time those guys left, they left as national champions. So, if like I said, if there's a better program, a better run program in the country right now that's got a way to do things, knows what they're looking for in players, to me, Villanova right now is the standard.
If you really want to know the difference in these three sports, try coaching some little league stuff. And you know what I'm talking about, man.
Take what you're talking about.
Take a bunch of 6 and 7 year olds and try to teach them to play all three of these sports. And I guarantee you the one that you'll have the hardest time with is
basketball.
Because they run into each other. There are no design. Even when you have drawn up plays in college basketball and the NBA, your average guy sitting on the couch can't see them, right? There's too much movement. There's too much freedom. Yeah. You have minutes of time go by with no interruptions, whereas football, baseball, we stop play constantly. Line back up. Stop. Line back up. There is none of that in basketball. Even the inbound pass is complete chaos. Mm-hmm. So instincts matter a lot more in that game, which is why I think it's so hard to coach. And I think it's why it's so hard to just take a random, really talented guy, stick him on the court, and think he's going to make a huge difference.
All right, but you talk about difficulties coaching. Jay Wright's name is coming up an awful lot the last few days now.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's been some speculation that he's going to give the NBA a try. You look at some potential NBA openings in Milwaukee, maybe Doc Rivers with the Clippers, the Grizzlies, the Bulls, the Knicks. Do you think the NBA is going to be able to lure Jay Wright away from the kingdom that he's built in the city of brotherly love?
I hope not. I think, and if I'm his agent, which of course I'm not, I mean, how many guys make this jump successfully? There aren't many. It's a different thing. What he's got going on in Villanova is special. Now, I don't know how his mind works. He seems like a really humble guy. He doesn't seem like a Steve Spurrier that's got it going at Florida and says, I think I'm just going to try that NFL thing, see how it works out. I'm going to do that on 30 hours a week and play golf. But I could be wrong. It would, obviously the money would be heads and tails above what he's making now. It wouldn't even be comparable. But the chances, I don't see it working out. You're not going to be able to do what you do here. What he just said about the way he likes to recruit is telling. Taking that attitude into the NBA, it's like that Jimmy Stewart movie where he goes up to Washington and just finds out all these awful things about the world. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Is that the name of it?
I've never heard of it.
You've never heard of it. Okay.
I really haven't. I've never heard of it.
It's one of the most famous movies of all time, but that's, it's neither here nor there. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, I think. I can't remember the name of it.
So it's one of the most famous movies of all time, and you follow that up with, I think that's the name.
Yes. It may be the most famous movie of all time after Tombstone, which, of course,
I've never seen.
Haven't seen either.
I heard Sunday morning. If you're familiar with the show that comes on, the Morning Roast on ESPN Radio,
never heard of it.
Well,
I have heard of it. I just didn't know I wanted to be.
But I forget the name of the guest they had on. But he said,
was it Jimmy Stewart?
I doubt it.
No, he's dead.
Probably.
No, he is.
He should be after making a movie. That stupid sounded. He comes on their show and he says he's had several high profile college coaches tell him, look, we know we're not going to succeed I know I'm not going to succeed in the NBA,
right?
And that they have come out and will literally say, look, I just want to go have them pay me $20 million for 3 years and then come back to college. I don't think that's Jay Wright's bag.
Because you're not going to get, let's say that he does that, you're not going to get this kind of program back. I don't care what you think your instincts are. Catching lightning in a bottle, you only do it one time.
Some guys just fit a school. And Jay Wright just fits Villanova. I think his wife is a Villanova grad. Mm-hmm. He's a Northeast guy. Now, maybe if the Knicks come calling, maybe something like that lures him. But you look at
because he's probably you never know if he's a guy that grew up watching those triangle offenses and it's coaching in Madison Square Garden. For God's sakes.
Maybe something like the Knicks. I don't think a job like Milwaukee or Phoenix is going to be enough to lure him. Anyway, something kind of up in the Northwest.
Well, you can never be the big man in Phoenix anyway, even if you win titles, because Jim Nance is the big man in Phoenix.
That's Charles Barkley's towns. Jay Wright makes $2.6 million. Okay, that's 24th in the country. Guys that are ahead of him, Kwanzo Martin, Scott Drew, Larry Kristowiak, Chris Holtman at Ohio State makes 7.1. All right,
that's insane.
Calipari makes almost 8. Coach K makes almost 9. So
Ohio State's got the highest, most overpaid coach in college basketball. Then,
so Jay Wright is not even in the stratosphere of these other guys. Now, I would imagine that Villanova's probably going to come to Jay Wright really soon, and they're probably going to write him a big fat check with a lot of zeros on the end of it and keep him in there. But if they don't, I could see him making that move to someplace, but it would have to be the right job. Because if he went to New York and he takes the Knicks money for 3 or 4 years, and that's a dumpster fire, and then he says, okay, I'm going to come back to college. You know what 2 jobs are probably going to be open within the next 4 or 5 years?
What's that?
North Carolina and Duke. I think Jay Wright would be, in that scenario, Jay Wright would be at the top. At least I think he would be at the top of North Carolina's list. I think Duke is more boxed in on who they're going to hire. I think they're going to hire a Duke guy.
They need somebody that's part of the Brotherhood.
Right, they're going to hire someone familiar with the Brotherhood, at least for this first hire after Krzyzewski. But those 2 jobs are going to come open. I don't think he's leaving. He's not going to leave Villanova for one of those 2 jobs. But I could see him leaving an NBA job.
We've got a few minutes left here.
We got a few minutes. I'm interested. What are you going to remember this NCAA tournament for? When you watch this tournament, you think
upsets. Upsets. I mean, that's it. I think that's the word of the tournament. If it's not that word, it's absolutely the shock.
Yeah.
Watching Virginia go down to some school with a direction on the end of the school's name. I mean, a 1 seed losing to a 16 seed for the first time in 180-something tries. Watching Xavier lose to a 9 seed and not even hear people talk about it the next day because it didn't even register because it would already the whole thing blew up. And then at the end of all of that, having the most predictable team from the whole thing go chalk and win the tournament. Well, it's just a strange tournament from stop to start.
It was a strange tournament, but the thing about Virginia and Maryland, Baltimore County, you know how many times I heard that brought up last weekend? Watching the Final Four? None. Not one time. It's almost like we completely forgot this unbelievable, historical moment that happened just 2 weeks earlier. And we were all the story of this tournament, Loyola and Sister Jean.
Oh, no, there's no question
that's now. Everybody's going to remember Sister Jean. Can you name me the mascot from Baltimore County? 2 weeks ago, man.
No, I probably didn't know it during the game.
And it's on the front of their jersey.
I'm sure you already knew it, though.
I did already know it.
You knew it before the game.
I did.
Yeah.
But that's my point. We've already forgotten about that. The story of this tournament, like you just said, 1, the most predictable team winning in the most predictable way possible, and 2, Loyola and Sister Jean. That's your 2017-2018 NCAA tournament in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, when is the last time a team made a run like this to the Final Four from that seeding?
Well, you had Syracuse was a 10 a couple years ago.
But that doesn't feel the same.
That doesn't feel the same.
Syracuse is Syracuse.
I'd say VCU.
Okay.
VCU.
Before they were VCU.
Before they were VCU, and they came from that first 4 play-in night, and they actually beat Kansas in the Alamo Dome that year in the Elite Eight. So I'd say VCU was at 2011, I think.
And because of the number of players that can turn around a basketball team, I mean, you don't have massive 100-player rosters here. Those things become reality, don't they? I mean, you can go back in time and find a time when Butler wasn't Butler, when Gonzaga wasn't Gonzaga,
right.
and they turned themselves into these basketball powerhouses.
I can remember back in '99, the first year that I knew that, and even watching basketball as a kid and watching John Stockton, he went to Gonzaga. I had no idea that was even a school. And then in '99, when they went to the Elite Eight, lost to UConn, I never even heard of the place. I remember watching through the bracket. I said, "Who is Gonzaga?"
Yeah.
And So that's kind of the way with Loyola this year, but I fully expect, I don't expect them to start making a Gonzaga-type run.
Right.
But I expect them to be back, maybe not in the Final Four next year, but they're going to be back in the tournament. They're going to be back being a force that nobody's going to want to see in their half of the bracket next year, too.
I definitely think if they didn't do anything else, they got the school a lot of attention, and they certainly earned a lot of fans because that's a gutsy bunch of kids.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a fun bunch.
All right, we've got about 8 minutes or so left here. I was just going to shoot this by you. Sports Illustrated's already released a tentative top 10 for next year. So now that we've put a big wildcat blue-colored bow on this season,
I think I can probably guess who number one is.
Well, let's just go up the list.
Right,
so at number 10, they've got Tennessee. That seems a little high for me. Tennessee's just, I don't know. They seem like an underperforming school to me. I had them making a lot more noise in this tournament than they ended up making.
Well, but they got caught up in the Loyola run.
Sure, they did. They did, but they still could have beat them. I mean, they had a ball. They had a net. Throw it in there, man.
Yeah, well, if it was only that simple, then North Carolina wouldn't gotten beat by 106 up in Charlotte.
Why do you keep bringing that up? I'm not trying to do this. I mean, you're on this list somewhere. Spoiler alert. I mean, we'll talk about North Carolina here. What do you think about Tennessee at 10?
It seems high. Seeing Tennessee and Auburn right there at 10 and 9, two SEC teams not traditionally up that high.
They've got 3 upper-class guards coming back, and that's a big part of it.
Tennessee's got a really good team. They've got a really good coach, and they were a 3 seed this year.
I don't understand his predilection for going to places with that orange color, but that's just Rick Barnes. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Maybe he just likes orange.
Speaking of orange, at number 9 we've got Auburn. So 2 SEC teams in a row here in the top 10.
Put a big asterisk by this one.
They may not have a team next year.
They may not even have a team next year, so we'll see. But Auburn was one of the big surprises of the year. I don't think that anybody had Auburn winning the SEC regular season title this year.
What do you think they would have looked like if McLemore hadn't gone down with that ankle injury? I mean, if they're healthy, and I mean that's a lot of teams aren't healthy going into the dance, but they didn't look the same after that.
No, they did not, and they had a lot of injuries. They kind of. Yeah, they had a special season, but a lot of injuries kind of derailed what could have been a really special season for Bruce Pearl.
At number 8, we just talked about him. Perennial top 10 team Gonzaga. And at number 8, I mean, it's hard to disagree with it.
As I say, no shocker. If they're going to bring back Perkins, as I say, I'm not sure about Jonathan Williams. I think he's out, but we're going to bring back Perkins. Going to bring back Rui Hachimura. Killian Tilly him and Perkins got a lot of run in the national title game last year, so they're still going to bring back a lot of experience. They flirted with going to the Mountain West. Did you see that? The Mountain West was pursuing them pretty heavy, and they ultimately said, "Nah, we'll stay right where we're at."
If it ain't broke,
that's pretty much it. We can win this conference every year,
and no one's expecting them to do anything else. They've gotten the name. 10 years ago, that might have been a conversation. Gonzaga gets penciled in now unless they blow it.
Well, and getting to that Final Four last year really takes a monkey off Mark Few's back. I mean, now they've done it. It's not this big cloud hanging over us. They've done it, and I'm pretty certain at some point they're going to do it again.
In at number 7, we've got Virginia. I feel like they definitely this is about next year, but it feels like moving them down to 7 has something to do with this year. First ACC team in at number 7.
Yeah, Villanova is going to be back up there. And they're going to be back up there. They're bringing back Guy. They're bringing back Salt.
Virginia.
Ty Jerome.
You said Villanova.
Well, I meant Virginia.
Just check.
They're going to be back. They're going to be back near the top of the ACC standings again. Whether or not they win it, I don't know. But Virginia, as long as Tony Bennett is in charge up there, they're not going anywhere.
Number 6, Sports Illustrated has the North Carolina Tar Heels. Big question: 7th Woods.
Yeah, 6 seems high.
You keep bringing up, wondering whether or not 7th even stays with the team. I mean,
it's possible. I think it may have been more possible last year than this year. I believe he'll probably start the year as a starting point guard, and whether or not he holds that job all year long, I don't know. A big part of it is whether or not he can just stay healthy. But 6,
Losing Barry and Pinson, that seems like a high rank.
They could wind up there. Because if you saw the McDonald's game, Nasir Little is a man, son. He is a man. And they've got a lot of talent still up there.
They do need someone to step up at point guard in a big way.
Yep, they're going to have to have it. And really, all told,
and you think they get back to playing bigs up front?
I think we're going to go back. I'd love for it to be Seventh Woods, but 6 seems real high.
All right, number 5, third ACC team. No surprise here, Kentucky. I don't even know that I care. I mean, Kentucky's going to have to show me something before I even feel like talking about them anymore.
Well, it's hard to know what to say about Kentucky because their team
everybody
changes,
on their team
is
taking the SAT right now. Excuse me, I'll let me put that in quotes. Taking the SAT right now. Gilgeous-Alexander came on late. He'll probably leave. I saw P.J. Washington throw his name in the hat, but supposedly not hiring an agent right now. Which one of the do they get a couple of these guys? Winning Gabriel. I think the narrative is moving away from leaving as quick as possible. All right, we're down to about a minute, so let's just round this out real quick. Number 4, we've got Michigan. That feels high to me.
That's way too high. Mo Wagner's going to be getting paid to play in the NBA next year. They're going to fall off a little bit.
Reigning national champion Villanova in at 3.
That seems too low. I think they're going to lose Brunson and probably Bridges, but again, Jay Wright doing his thing, and they're going to bring some of these guys back. They're going to bring back Spellman, DiVincenzo. So 3 might be low. I might have them at number 1. Or maybe 2. I might flip-flop. Put them at 2.
I think this is way too high. Duke in at number 2. We're banking on a lot of kids that haven't played a single minute of college basketball. And as we've pointed out on this show, a lot of them playing at similar positions, similar size. None of them are Marvin Bagley.
No.
There's no 6'10" guys in this upcoming class.
Well, they're not going to have a Grayson Allen, a senior on the team to bring it.
They can find somebody else to throw temper tantrums and trip people during games.
Duke's sitting here at 2 in this poll based on 3 numbers, 1, 2, and 3, and that's the top 3 recruits they're bringing in next year.
No question. And on paper, I get that. And maybe I've just been influenced by your evil viewpoint too much because I didn't.
My evil viewpoint.
I'll admit this, though, man. I remember back in the 90s watching Bobby Hurley and those guys in Leitner, and I really hated them. I didn't even know why. It seems like Duke just has a preponderance of players whose eyes are very close together.
Well, you know why. It's because they always have, whether it's Leitner or J.J. Redick or Grayson Allen, they always have one white guy that can play. And just Sonny, man, it just grates your nerves watching them out there.
I don't feel like I hate people because they're white. I'm a white guy, but their eyes are close together.
It's something about that. Nobody hates Marvin Bagley or Wendell Carter, but everybody hated Grayson Allen, and everybody hated
That
J.J.
Jeter
Redick.
guy, though, man, I couldn't stand him. He wasn't a white guy.
I don't really even remember him.
Maybe 1
he was
the Kansas Jayhawks. They deserve to be in the top 5. They should have just, like I said, if the brackets had worked out different, they would have played for a national title, right? They lost to probably the one team that could beat them.
Yeah.
But they happened to lose to them around before the national title game. I think Kansas beats either Michigan or Loyola. Am I wrong?
No.
Okay, so Kansas was probably the second best team in this tournament this year. Yeah. But unfortunately, the distance between them and Villanova felt pretty big. And it's ironic, though, isn't it, to put Villanova this far down when we just pointed out that they won with players who weren't highly touted?
Yep,
what do you need from them to think that they're the best team in the country again?
That's the way it is. But Kansas, they're going to lose McKay Luke and Devontae Graham. If you saw, drawing a blank on his name, the one that killed Duke, transfer Malik Newman. He should be back. Hopefully, I'd love to see him back. The 2 brothers transferring in from Memphis are eligible next year. So Bill Self, 14, 15 straight Big 12 titles. If they didn't lose it this year, replacing Frank Mason and that crew that they lost, I think next year I expect more of the same from them.
The Chicago Tribune, just real quick, has Duke at number 1 preseason for next year.
Chicago Tribune, commie rag.
I couldn't click on the article though because it said I had used my 3 free articles for the week.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's hour number 1 in the books. Hour 2 coming up. Look at the NFL, some mock drafts. We'll look at some college football spring games and get BG's take on the Gamecocks. And hopefully he'll take it easy on the Clemson Tigers.
Go Redskins. Woo!
If I got in, I had to cut it on because of music.